Hello, my name's Geoffrey. I discovered Quakers and Quaker worship in the same week, I suppose. I was about 45, something like that, about 15, 16 years ago. And I was in a bit of, well, more than a bit, I was in a fog. And I had been for some time. I'd been quite a religious little boy. I'd sort of taken it off like a coat and hung it on a peg when I was about 18 and never referred to it or returned to it again and thought I didn't care about it. And I found myself really knowing that I needed something, not really knowing what I needed, not really having a clear idea, probably very much actually, of who I was. I was just sort of doing lots of stuff and not really having a sense of what it was for. And I discovered that I was being pushed. I was actually having a relationship with what I would now call God, I think. It was a very difficult, very awkward relationship. I didn't get it. I felt myself being pushed by an energy to do things that I didn't know why or what. And I was sort of, spiritually speaking, all dressed up with nowhere to go, I think. And I looked into all sorts of things. I tried Buddhist meditation classes, which didn't really work for me very well, though I did like the Buddhists. And I went back to the Anglican church of my childhood, which meant precisely nothing, actually. And then I found myself in the same traffic jam outside the same Quaker meeting house, looking at the same Quaker poster every day for 3 weeks. It said, "Peace is a process to engage in, not an end to be reached." And that got to me, actually. I thought that was very good indeed. And I went to the Quaker bookshop, which is in London, and I bought some books about the Quakers, and I read some books about the Quakers, little leaflets and things. This Advices and Queries was one of the ones I read. And I decided to go to a Quaker meeting. It's called Meeting for Worship. That word, worship, hangs some people up. It didn't really hang me up when I first started going because I just wanted to go. I just wanted to see what happened. I didn't care what they called it. Well, actually, I still don't care what they call it, really, in a funny sort of way, I think, because I think that word worship is an old word. It's just a word. It doesn't mean a huge amount to me. I don't see it as sort of bowing down to something. I see it as being aware, really, of something, I think. And it reminds me, which is a help, that meeting for worship is not meeting for thinking. And I can think myself into the most terrible, awful spirals and do the whole time. And a meeting for worship is a wonderful respite from that, if it's nothing else. Actually, I think it is much more than that. This little book, Advices and Queries, has got a definition of it, which I really like. It says, worship is our response to an awareness of God. I've been to dictionaries and looked up worship, and I've never found anything better than that. The reason I like it so much is that it says it's a response to something, that it isn't something that I just dive in and launch into for myself. So it isn't about my ego or my needs to be this or do that. It's a response to something, but it's a response to an awareness of God. It isn't a response to a knowledge of God or an understanding of God or an absolute clarity of God. All I've got to be is aware that something is needed or going on or pushing me. I've just got to have a sense of it. And then it might work for me. And it does, actually. And it did. The first time I went into that Quaker meeting house, I mean, you probably know, if you don't know anything else, you probably know that Quakers meet in silence. Silence isn't the point of it, I think. I think the point of it is stillness, actually. And I think the point of the people who speak in a meeting for worship is also to contribute to the stillness. But Quakers meet in silence, and the first one I ever went to, somebody was playing Radio 2 just outside the window, very loud, for the first 50 minutes. And the most amazing thing was that it worked. There wasn't the silence, but there was the stillness. And it's addictive. And I keep going. I have a feeling I'm going to keep going for really quite a long time yet.
Hello everyone, I'm Jean. And I want to share something of what the Quaker way of worship means to me. And I'm going to start by quoting a few words from this little booklet, Advices and Queries, which is the first part of Quaker Faith and Practice that you've already been introduced to. These words have come to mean more and more to me. Worship is our response to an awareness of God. We can worship alone, but when we join with others in expectant waiting, we may discover a deeper sense of God's presence. Now, I've read lots and I've talked a lot about worship, but if I were stranded on a desert island, those are the words I would take with me for my comfort and encouragement. And I want to explore them a little bit. For worship as a sense of awareness is much more attractive to me than following a form or a ritual or a path or a way. It's an awareness. And I think it's because I can say that from childhood, that sense of awareness has been my key, my foundation. Because when all others were giving me words and ideas of things I should or should not say, do, believe, I trusted my own sense of an awareness of, I couldn't give you words to describe it then, and I find great difficulty in doing so now, but I suppose a sense of the divine, a sense of the divine presence beside me, with me. That divine presence, for me, has a very strong mystical tradition. It is from that mystical tradition, it has that sense of unknowingness. And that is, it isn't a scary not knowing, it is a sense of mystery that may or may not be revealed. And when it is, and there are moments of direct revelation in my experience, it has an authentic power of communication to meet that deepest sense of awareness. Worship is our response to an awareness of God. Like many, I have struggled with the word God and come to reject it as all that which limits and puts down anybody else who does not believe in God. But I have also come to respect that many within other faith traditions, that their expression of God comes from that deep place that I know. And the words they use to describe may be helpful for them, they may not be helpful to me, but I can respect that inner integrity of them. I also hope they might respect my inner integrity too. So I've come to say, it's only 3 letters, it's a very short word, it's a good enough shorthand for me to use. And I want to explain why that's important to me, because when I first went to a Quaker meeting for worship, I had lots of baggage about the words that I didn't like and didn't feel comfortable with. And I walked in to that Quaker meeting for worship, and I sat in the stillness and the silence. No words, no actions were required of me. I could just be with my God. And that was a gift of great blessing. So for me, in a meeting for worship, it is a time of being still and attentive to God. I seek to be open to others who are with me in that expectant waiting. I may be given insights and guidance. I may just be nurtured in a way that I am not aware of. I may just have to give way and trust that in that gatheredness, the intention of us all sharing in worship, that things happen, things change. We are changed.
If you go into a Quaker meeting house, you will find usually a circle of chairs. Some older meeting houses have them in a square formation, or they have 2 banks of chairs facing each other. But whatever happens, whenever you go into a meeting for worship, you will find that you can see other people, and that's intentional. The whole point of a meeting for worship is that it's communal. So you're sitting with other people, and this is our meeting, isn't your meeting. You can't have a meeting for worship on your own. You can meditate on your own, but a meeting for worship will only happen with at least one other person, and preferably more than one, and preferably people in a circle so that we can all feel we're together, doing this together. And it's a good idea, out of a sense of responsibility to oneself, I suppose, really, but also a responsibility to the people around us who are with us, to come with some sense of what we're about to do, not just arrive straight out the car or off the bus with millions of thoughts in our heads and just sort of and sit down. It's not going to work really that way if we do that. So, I mean, this little book tells us to come, as they put it, with heart and mind prepared. Very good, actually, that, because we use our hearts and our minds together, I think, in meeting for worship. But we shouldn't be doing too much thinking. It isn't called a meeting for thinking. And there's this 100 years ago, someone wrote this about his first meeting for worship. He said, "No sooner had I commenced than a perfect pandemonium of voices reached my ears, 1,000 clamouring notes from without and within, until I could hear nothing but their noise and din. Some of them were my own voice, some of them were my own questions, some of them were my prayers." And it's going to happen. It's just going to happen. When you first go to a meeting for worship, your head's going to be full and you won't know how to get rid of it. And all of us who've been going to meeting for a long time still have a problem with this often. So it's not something to worry too much about. Some people find that the way they sit helps. it usually helps me to have both feet sort of parallel-ish and clearly touching the floor. If my feet are up there somewhere or here, it's not so great. But I know people who do. They do all those things. It helps me to have my hands still, but I'm not one of those sort of people who sit like in a posture. I don't find a posture very helpful to me. It just means that the easiest thing for me is just to sit with my back fairly straight to the chair and my hands fairly still in a position in which there is as little tension as I can muster, really. And what happens when I sit there? Well, going through what I've just done today, or going through what I'm going to do today or tomorrow, is usually unhelpful. There's times when I can't help it, but it's best for me simply to set it to one side. Not obliterate it or cross it out or pretend it isn't happening, but simply to set it mentally to one side, let it be there, but not quite at the centre. It sometimes helps me to say something over and over again, though actually lately I haven't been doing that nearly so much. But I used sometimes to say, "Be still and know that I am God." I've done the Our Father to myself terribly slowly. That was a suggestion someone else gave to me, and I found it was very helpful. I've tended to change my way of viewing this, really. Something I've done lately is what the first Quakers 350 years ago used to talk about, which was trying to sit in the light, they called it. They used to call it the light which shows and uncovers. I sit and I try to look at myself. I try to look at my behaviour. I try to look at where I'm succeeding and where I'm not succeeding, where I'm failing perhaps. I try to be clear with myself. And I find that if I begin by doing that, the shopping list side of things has usually gone. But because I'm actually concentrating on something much more interesting, which is me. And I'm just thinking about what I can do with myself. And from that will come the stuff I will only spend 5, 10, 15 minutes on that at the very most. Because from that, I may be able, hopefully, to go on something that isn't me. That's actually what I'm here for.
Hello again. You remember that in the first part, we talked from the advices and queries about how in our meetings for worship, we seek a gathered stillness, so that all may feel the power of God's love drawing us together and leading us. From that stillness and gathering may come what is called spoken ministry. That word ministry doesn't mean that we suddenly all put on dog collars and become ministers with prepared sermons, but rather that it's that sense of the word that, as the dictionary says, is one that serves as a means, an instrument. And what we are prepared with is that we become a channel for words that are given to us that will be spoken to enrich and deepen the gathered meeting for worship. Now, anyone present may speak, even if it's their first meeting for worship. But each one of us has to exercise a discipline, a responsibility for each other. Because insights may come that need to be tested. Often, those profound insights are for us alone. Out of the stillness, we hear something that we have not been attentive to, and the words are a message for us to pay attention to. It may, however, be that they are words that are given that make limited sense to us, but they have, I find it interesting to describe, they've got a fizz about them, they've got a difference about them. It's as if they are alive in themselves, they have a living quality that need to be expressed. And this is the Quaker experience, that insights, prayer, rejoicings, sometimes cries of pain, will arise from the meeting for worship, will arise out of that stillness, and they will need to be spoken. Now, my experience is that when such words come, and they have that quality that is of the Spirit, of the light. They have an urgency. And my first response is, and it's shared by many other Quakers, is, no, not me, I'm not standing up to speak. Let somebody else do it. No. But there is an agitation, a compulsion that the need is there that must be met. These words are important to be heard. They must be expressed. And so I find that I am forced to my feet, usually trembling, not at all clear about what it is I'm going to say beyond perhaps the first few words. But it is the discipline of letting go, of being obedient to the Spirit. And often I find that what I have to say is inadequate, it's incomplete. But I have learned to trust and know that when I hear such ministry from others, that it is the beginning of, a part of something that is part of the whole worship. And often those words are that which feeds and nurtures the deepening of the meeting for worship and allows other insights and profound ministry to follow. And that is what I seek for in true ministry, that deepening of the silence. But it is that ministry of the silence, remember that word, that it serves as a means, we are an instrument for one another. The ministry of silence is equally, if not, I would say, more important. For words can break and disturb the gathering, that awareness of God's presence. And we are all encouraged to uphold one another, and the silence becomes creative and positive and tangibly, I'm saying almost tactile, real, evident. And in the advices and queries, it says, remember that we all share responsibility for the meeting for worship, whether our ministry is in silence or through the spoken word. The meeting for worship ends when two Quakers, who have been asked beforehand, will sense when the worship is over, when there is a sense of release, that they are aware that the ministry can be let go, And there is a shaking of hands between those two friends, and they turn and shake hands, and we all shake hands. For we have shared that responsibility for worship together, and it has been our experience. And we hope that it has been of joy to us all.